Why is cobalt the perfect example of how we do not have control over energy transition? Hello, I'm Ivan, and today we're going to try to answer this question, which is essential for the energy transition. Cobalt is a chemical element which is with the symbol Co. It was for the first time purified and identified in 1730s by the Swedish chemist Georg Bruns. Cobalt is a vital element in various strategical sectors such as aerospace, chemistry, or manufacturing industry. But a big part of cobalt is nowadays used in low-carbon technologies, like renewable energies in wind turbines or even lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles.
Now let's consider the global market. If we consider the cobalt demand, it grew at a compound annual growth rate of 9.2% from 2015 to 2020, and it reached an annual production of 140 kilotons in 2020. Except some unusual events such as COVID-19 pandemic, the demand constantly rise and expected to sixfold up to 2050. In order to reach this demand, various preserve reserves are present in the dozen of countries, but these reserves are not eventually distributed, since half of them is only the Democratic Republic of Congo, followed by 20% in Australia and rest in the world. Cobalt production is highly concentrated within only few countries, and this trend is even dramatically increasing since DRC went from 56% to 72% in the last decade. However, everything is not only about the countries, but also multiple companies are involved. For instance, 8 out of 14 cobalt miners in Congo are now Chinese owned. When looking at the global picture, China controls 58% of the total cobalt refining capacity. But when analyzing some specific productions, these figures can even be higher. For instance, concerning the cobalt chemicals that are necessary for battery cathodes, more than 80% of the world production is done by China. This takeover of China is made possible by strong investment in infrastructure. Most significant example is the railway connection connecting DRC from east to west of the African continent. This leads to an exponential increase in the trade between China and DRC.
But now, what are the issues? As you already probably guessed, this monopoly is leading to some supply issues. On one hand, DRC Congo is unfortunately ranked under 48th in the Corruption Perception Index and the last in the Mining Risk Index. On the other hand, China's controls on the entire value chain from mining to battery production leads to a risk of embargo or market power. Therefore, cobalt is one of the most critical materials for France and Europe, both for supply risk and strategical importance. Because of China's monopoly on mining, refinery, logistics, and production of technologies such as battery, they have the power to influence the global market. In addition to strategical issues, major economic uncertainties remain, as seen by the price market that fluctuates a lot. It went from a steady pace before 2018 to a very perturbed market. It first reached an all-time high of $95 million per ton due to high demand and some speculation. Then in 2022, the price peaked again due to COVID crisis and an increasing demand. Political instability and COVID led to supply chain bottleneck on the cobalt market. The average cost of a container shipping rose from $5,000 to $10,000 in 2021. Therefore, despite an increase of the production, exports toward China are stable in the last few years. As China has a hand on all the supply, it's one of the main actors to impact the price. But the price is also strongly impacted by the fact that cobalt is a byproduct of either copper or nickel. Indeed, only 2% are mined from a primary cobalt thanks to a mine in Morocco. In other words, this limits the mining capacity of cobalt as it's driven by the other metal demands.
Cobalt mining has many impacts on the environment and human health. Open-pit mines pollute water and soils with toxic products. A life cycle analysis of cobalt shows that cobalt strongly affects the global warming, human toxicity, and water source depletion. Moreover, NGOs have documented serious human rights violations linked to the extraction of cobalt. Neither DR Congo nor companies protect workers from this hand labor. Moreover, child labor is still common. They must carry heavy sacks of mineral ore, around 20 or 40 kilograms sometimes. Even if the government began to act on child labor in 2018, it's still insufficient and remains a big social issue of cobalt mining. We've seen that we need cobalt to reduce our carbon emissions and succeed the energy transition. However, currently this mineral is mainly refined by China and geographically unequally extracted. Its impacts on environment and social rights are not considered enough. Adding its volatile price, we clearly note that we don't have control on our energy transition.
In order to decrease our dependency, we would like to introduce some ideas as solutions. To tackle supply threats, Europe must diversify its sourcing country. Australia is a good candidate for extraction since the country has sufficient cobalt reserve and production growth is supposed to double in the next decade. When it comes to the refining, Europe must also develop capacities on its territory in order to keep and better control on the supply chain. For all critical material, recycling is essential to ensure a sustainable supply. It is also a good way to reduce dependence on foreign countries. Experts estimate that nearly 15% of cobalt consumption in 2030 will be secondary. As explained previously, cobalt extraction in DRC leads to a lot of environment and social issues. To tackle those problems, a lot of companies have created alliances to work on 3 missions: develop fair cobalt, strike against child labor, and diversify the local economy in DRC. The alliance includes companies from all the cobalt value chain, mining company with CMOC, and car maker with Tesla, and so on. Another solution to reduce cobalt demand is to use sobriety lever. Using EVs with smaller battery will easily lower the supply pressure. The small car has 20 times smaller battery than the biggest one. The continuous technological improvements give rise to a 70 to 95% reduction of cobalt content in batteries. Now that you have understood all aspects of the cobalt criticality, this analysis must be placed in a broader framework since low-carbon technologies involve plenty of metals where each has different issues. Thank you for your attention.